Good morning. Welcome to another Midweek with Meaning. Please, as you're coming on, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. My name is Angela Ward. I am a registered nurse and soul midwife, helping people through the journey of rebirth and finding the life that really is what they want to live. Good morning, Facebook user. If you're watching live on Facebook, please make sure to give StreamYard permission. That should be at the top of this post. And that will let me see who's actually messaging me. Or, of course, you can put in your comments who you are. Otherwise, I'm blind. Oh, hi, Ellie. Good morning. So, just a little housekeeping. If you're watching live, it always is nice to hear your reflection and feedback in the course of the conversation. Or if there's technical difficulties, of course, please let me know. And questions are always welcome. And if you're watching the replay, please put replay in the comments. If you are watching on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, because the more the merrier, right? And if this is helpful for you, please share it. I love that. So let's get started. The theme of today is interdependence. And it's so interesting to me how these things kind of all come together in my life or in the people I'm working with. Like, the themes emerge across my work life, my personal life, the community. It's just incredible. Of course, we just celebrated the 4th of July, Independence Day here in the United States, which is personally a challenging holiday for me because I don't like the fireworks at all. I think if you're going to do that, just give me your money and I'll set something on fire for you. But I don't know. It just seems like such a waste, and it's so stressful, and my animals don't love it, and I don't know. Also, I recognize how many people don't truly have independence, or that this holiday wasn't necessarily about them. So it's such a strange idea. And I believe independence from oppressive rule is something to celebrate, absolutely. But there's something about our American style, which is really rooted in independence and our ability to go it alone and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. And that's in air quotes, by the way. That's not, I'm not in agreement with that one. But I think that independence can be really harmful in a lot of ways. Of course, it's great to be independent with your movement and your choices and all of these things. But at the same time, that's really not how we are. We are social beings, social animals that thrive when we are in community and connected with one another. And I would argue that there truly is no independent, any part of us in the world. Like, everything is interdependent. There are systems and symbiotic relationships evident in nature throughout the planet. In fact, perhaps you might be able to think of a symbiotic relationship. Does anybody know one? Feel free to put one in the comments of a symbiotic relationship. One that I would like to offer is just the nature of our gut microbiome. Like, we could not function without having a healthy gut microbiome, which is made up of all this bacteria that isn't actually me, right? Or is it me? Is it me? Where is me? Who is me? But truly, I would not be able to thrive without the interplay of a healthy gut microbiome, which allows nourishment to be converted into things that my body can actually use and helps transport waste and such. So that's one example. I'm sure we can think of many more. There are multiple incidents in nature. I heard of a very interesting one recently. I'm trying to remember where I heard it, about how trees are able to send out through their roots, if one tree is getting attacked by a certain type of beetle, the roots underneath the ground connect to their neighbors. They don't intertwine necessarily, but they have a chemical relationship, or may have to do with the fungi, that the mycelium for example. And so if this tree is getting attacked by this beetle, these trees learn to secrete a certain thing that repels them, which is really incredible. Someone shares, you only trade independence for community when you have trauma. The illusion of independence is so real. Yeah, people are independent but get Amazon packages and DoorDash and blah, blah, blah. I love it. Hey, I just read this quote too. Thank you for sharing that. Everything is hitched to everything else by John Muir. I was just reading that and doing the research here. The one that I saw said, where was it? I'll read it to you. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. So just as we are connected in this interplay and this interrelatedness. One thing that has really driven this home for me is there are some extended family members and friends that I know of recently that are really struggling and are also struggling to accept support. That there's this pride wrapped up in independence, or this pride wrapped up in being able to do for oneself, which is wonderful, especially if one does come from trauma. I wonder how many people have learned that they can't rely on other people. You know, how many of us have learned that other people aren't safe and being connected to community isn't safe? And yet we are interpersonal and interrelated. And so what does this mean exactly? Like, how do we navigate the world if we understand our interrelatedness? And how do we respond? So there's two ways I'm thinking about this. So one is when I realize our interconnectedness, it inspires me to treat others as I would be treated, right? Like to be kind, to be compassionate, to move more slowly, to let people get in line in front of me on the freeway, you know, basic silly stuff, to try to really come from a place of seeking understanding and connection, even with people that I don't necessarily agree with or in situations that I find stressful. So that's one way of looking at it, is how can I relate? But then there's also the idea of what do I do when someone's projecting their shit on me, and how do I keep myself safe in that place? It's a tricky lens, right? There are times when I'm feeling very generous and connected and community related, but I am seen as other, or I am seen as a threat, or whatever people want to project on me or project on you. So how do we kind of hold that balance and recall the interconnectedness and come from that place of personal integrity and personal alignment? Another quote that I saw from Mahatma Gandhi from 1929 says, "Interdependence is and ought to be as much the ideal of man as self-sufficiency. Man is a social being. Without interrelation with society, he cannot realize his oneness with the universe or suppress his egotism. His social interdependence enables him to test his faith and prove himself on the touchstone of reality." I think that is such a beautiful quote. Maybe I'll read it again because there's a lot there. "Interdependence is and ought to be as much the ideal of man as self-sufficiency. Man is a social being. Without interrelation with society, he cannot realize his oneness with the universe or suppress his egotism. His social interdependence enables him to test his faith and prove himself on the touchstone of reality." So it's pretty wild to consider that that quote is almost 100 years ago. And yet it still remains a deep truth, I think, that there's something about being connected to other that once opens us and humbles us, you know. When we're talking about suppressing the egotism, I'm not talking about making someone feel bad for who they are, but there's this kind of awe, maybe, with the oneness with the universe, but then also this place within it that can make one feel humble, you know, have some humility, maybe not a narcissistic center of the world, it's all about me kind of person. So the part about being interdependent and connecting lets us test our faith. That's an interesting concept. So to me, that means the things, my values, my core values, the things that I believe to be true or ways that I want to be in the world, I can put those into practice and kind of test my capacity to hold on to those values. If you remember, there's a couple episodes back where we talked about our code of ethics, our personal code of ethics. And I think this is a really great idea of like, how do we show up holding on to those values in the interrelatedness of society and community and one another? Because we can be quite noble in our mindset and actions if we're sitting at home by ourselves or have a very limited connection and community with people that agree with us all the time, right? And then that other part of to prove himself on the touchstone of reality. That's a really interesting idea. Prove himself on the touchstone of reality. So like, checking back in with where you are and if some of these things perhaps are shared values. I think I've shared before and I'll share it again that it's so easy to think of people as other. And yet one of the great privileges I had working as a nurse was being able to see our humanity at some of these really important portals of potential for transformation in our lives. Birth was specifically where I was working, but also worked with death in that particular setting. And there were times that I learned death and birth traditions from different cultures that, oh my God, they were just so sweet and beautiful and tender and full of love and pain and hope. And it makes me want to cry to talk about it. But to see that we get so lost sometimes in our disconnection that we forget our commonality. We forget our shared experience of being human. Yeah. There is something really powerful about remembering that we are connected. We are connected through our experiences, through the challenges we face in life, and that we can support one another through these things. I'm so surprised it's bringing me these tears, but it's just a real tender truth, I think. So how might we, with courage and vulnerability, move into more interdependence with one another and hold each other in this sacred way of connecting? I think this is a really great question. It's a practice, right? I think it's a practice of being open and connecting with one another and staying aligned with our personal values. And then also maybe practicing Tonglen, for example, of when those negative actions, those harms that are being pushed towards us, by using our own personal power to transmute that, to change it from lead into gold, literally by using breath, by using grounding. Like, I'm not saying you're breathing out gold, but I'm saying that you can shift these things. We can shift these things that bring us into harmony. And I really believe that, like fear, hope, courage, and love are contagious. These ways of grounded presence and connection are contagious. People can get that. They feel resonance. We can feel resonance with one another. So how might we do this? So as I said, I don't know the answer other than just continuing to practice. But I do have something I'd like to share. I would like to draw us a card for inspiration today, which I haven't done for a while. But I was gifted a new oracle deck, which I have committed to work with daily until I get to know it well. It is the Sacred Earth Oracle. Thank you, Ellie, so much. So this question of how do we connect? How do we connect? How do we tune into this interdependence? And rather than celebrating this independence, this disconnection, this rigidity that can come from independence, this inability to receive, like how do we move into interdependence and allow for more flow, more connection? I'm also currently reading Charles Eisenstein's book, Sacred Economics. And it talks, like the idea of reciprocity isn't necessarily that I give you something and you give me something. It's this energy of flow that maybe I give you something and maybe you give somebody something else. And somehow this gift comes back multiplied to me because it makes this energetic journey, right? So let's one more shuffle and see. Something just jumped out. So I think, oh, wow. Well, if it jumps out, that's the one that's meant to be. I mean, who's the boss of the tarot anyway? So the card we got was this one called Motion. Oh, that's so pretty. Here, what if I put it over here? Can you see it better? Motion. So let me read this to you and see what it has to say. As I'm getting ready here, why don't you take a look at it and see what you see there. Got it? Okay, hold on. I have to use both hands for a second. Okay, I'm going to read you the whole thing partially because I'm still learning what this deck is about. But it says, the earthly meaning is of cause and effect. Ding, 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 perfect. Cause and effect. So how we are a cause set in motion, right? So how we act and how we behave and how we think and feel creates the effects that happen around us. So, okay, first sentence, we're already there. Earthly meaning, cause and effect. Know what you want for the future and act accordingly. Be aware of the forces influencing your decisions. A spoke in the wheel is a minor setback, not a disaster. Deal with it quickly and move on. Shifting a single limiting belief will release a flood of creativity, insight, and confidence. Replace hoping for change with acting for change. And we already talked about Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. See what I'm saying? These things just line up sometimes. It's super crazy. Okay. Spiritual meaning of this card. You have the power to free yourself from the lingering sense of guilt and fear that is holding you back. You can choose to let go, or you can choose to hold on. That's making me think about grudges of maybe having a hard time connecting or being interdependent because of limiting beliefs, maybe grudges, maybe holding on to feeling this weird sense of obligation. You can choose to let go or you can choose to hold on. This card encourages you to release the blocks in your otherwise divine plan and to be free. Remove the debris of doubt and be moved to hope as love and clarity flow within you once more. Be moved to hope. And then the insight for this card. Everything is in constant motion. Coastlines, continents, and mountains are all moving. Some things move much slower than others, and movement can be imperceptible. Our planet is moving, so even as we sit still, we are changing our position in space. All of that movement has a cause. Wait, I just have to put this on the screen. I'm not sure who's sharing this with me, but your posts are really great today. Stop treating your soul purpose like a side bitch. Yes, exactly. Love it. Love your soul's purpose. All right. Where were we? All that movement has a cause. Every movement is caused by another, going all the way back to the first movement, the very first act at the point of creation. Motion is predictable and largely mechanical. The exceptions are very small objects, like atoms and objects traveling at near the speed of light. Setting a goal or a dream in motion is not a mysterious undertaking. It is mechanical. It requires action. Yep. The act of study moves ignorance to knowledge. A first attempt brings you closer to achievement. An act of love moves chaos to harmony. An act of love moves chaos to harmony. Newton's first law of motion states that every object will remain at rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless compelled to change its states by the action of an external force. Likewise, people rarely changed course unless compelled to do so by something outside themselves. Knowing your underlying motives, the forces that compel you, can predict your direction, but it is your actions that take you there. Blessed be with that one. Thank you so much, beautiful Sacred Earth Oracle. That seems divinely inspired for what we're talking about today, as it always is. So I think what this card is telling us to do is to put interconnectedness into action, to find ways that we can make the change that we want to see, the ways that we want to relate. If you have not had a chance to watch the Midweek with Meaning around our code of ethics, you might think about going back there and tapping into that one and just getting a little clear about what your personal ethical code is. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you, kind of what you're thinking about this week. So that is that for today. I so appreciate you being here with me today. Remember, if you're on YouTube, to like and subscribe. If you want to know more about me, you know how to follow me on the places and the things. I'm on Instagram. I'm on the Facebooks. I'm on Mighty Networks. And I really create this based in response to what's happening with you guys and what's happening in relationship with me. And yeah, I'd really, really love some ideas from you of what would be good to discuss and hear how this is landing for you. So, all right, my loves, have a beautiful, beautiful day. I hope you find ways where you can see the interconnectedness of all life. You can see the symbiotic relationships that share and support one another. And I pray that you allow yourself to be supported during this next week. And I'll see you here next Wednesday at the same time. Okay. Bye-bye, loves.